Good morning, everyone. And happy early Father's Day to everyone. First, before I get started, I am the chair and founder of the Congressional Dads Caucus, but I would like to recognize one of my colleagues who is here. This has been a very chaotic week with the schedule constantly in flux. So anybody that's here, thank you so much. But with that, I'd like to introduce Congressman Dr. Raul Ruiz, who is a father of twins, two girls. So let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, and let's give it up for Jimmy Gomez, the chair of the Dads Caucus, doing an amazing job. He started this, didn't know where it was going, and this has grown so big because there's such a need for this conversation to happen. And I want to thank everybody for supporting the Dads Caucus. I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'm looking forward to the presentation. I'm a dad of twins. In fact, I'm a doctor as well, so I was the one that found my twin. The OB was looking with the ultrasound and said, there's no twins. I said, wait, can I use the ultrasound? Yeah. So I got the ultrasound and I found the other heartbeat, and I'm like, we're having twins. And in addition to that, during the C-section, I went in, I scrubbed in, and I was fortunate enough to assist the doctor removing my daughters, and I made sure that I was the one that cut the cord so that in their teenage years I can say, look, I cut the cord once, I can cut it again. But this is wonderful, and the best of luck on this conversation, and let's lift up all parents, in this particular case with our conversation, our fathers, and help our fathers protect, provide, and love. So thank you so much.
There's a reason. I was biochem actually before I switched to politics, and I thought I was going to be a doctor. And after seeing the C-section when my son was born, good thing I went into politics. I almost passed out. So first, thank you so much. I represent Los Angeles, and one of the I always tell people, I always thought my career would be kind of what would be my legacy. Everything I've done, and when it comes to passing legislation, everything I've done as an elected official or the titles I held. And that was until my son Hodge was born. Right? I think that's any father can say that. Right. That everything kind of changes after your child or your children are born, and you get a better sense of understanding that no matter how long we live, the job and our work is never over. And the way our legacy continues is the values that we instill in our children. And that's one of the reasons I started the Dads Caucus. And it was really kind of one of the reasons, but not the only reason. The other reason is that when he was about 4.5 months old, I took him to the House floor during a speaker's vote. And the reason I took him in a baby carrier is that that's how I would take him around. As young as 3 months, 4 months, I would walk around the neighborhood in order to calm him down, and he got used to that. As the vote went on and on and on, he ended up getting really fussy, so I put him in a baby carrier, and I actually missed one of the rounds of voting, so I had to run out to the floor with him still strapped on, and people seem to love the image. And of course, I mean, as dads, we often get praised for doing the same work and the same thing as mothers, and they often get criticized for it. And it kind of did expose that double standard, but it made me realize that we could do something as dads. We can do something as dads, not only as home to be there for our spouses, be there for our kids, but also to play a role in changing the narrative around fatherhood, changing the narrative around being a member of Congress or a professional in fatherhood. That you can be a member of Congress, but also be a dad, and not only wear it on your sleeve, but wear it on your chest. And that's why I was fighting for paid family leave to begin with. It's one of the reasons why I founded the Congressional Dads Caucus. At first, there was only 6 members of the Dads Caucus. Now we're at 45 members of the Dads Caucus, 3 U.S. senators, Ruben Gallego, Andy Kim, and Adam Schiff. And then after this past election, Hakeem Jeffries, I went in and I said, hey, if you're looking at a way to connecting with men, then you have to connect with them with where they're at. And then he joined the Dads Caucus. So 45 members strong. But the year before, I was a proud founding members of the Mamas Caucus. I was one of 2 men who joined the Mamas Caucus, and that's because the challenges that moms and dads face are symptoms of the same broken system that's failing families. That's why we're here this week, not just to mark Father's Day this Sunday, but because dads in America are facing real challenges. The new State of American Men report from Equimundo lays it all out. Men under financial strain are 16 times more likely to consider suicide. Half of men say no one really knows them. Most dads want to be more emotionally present, but feel unsupported. This is a public health crisis hiding in plain sight. And the old playbook of provide, shut up, keep grinding isn't working anymore, especially when everything is unaffordable. And when the government guts the safety nets that are meant to help you get back on your feet. That's why the Dads Caucus focuses on 3 policy pillars to address these issues: paid leave, expanded child tax credit, and affordable child care. It's also why we have a Dads Caucus mental health working group, spearheaded by Congressman Rob Menendez. Because if we're serious about building strong families, we also have to talk about mental health. That's part of what today's discussion is about, and it's central to the future of fatherhood and parenthood in this country. When we support men as caregivers, not just as breadwinners, we build stronger families. When we create space for that, we raise healthier children. And when we stop pointing fingers at men for struggling and start backing them with real support, everyone wins. This isn't about culture wars. This is about having an open and honest conversation and getting to work. And I'm proud to be joined by a powerful panel of men who are doing just that. Now let's kick things off with a video from our partners at Equimundo. I know there's a dad joke somewhere in this, but well, with that, I'd like to invite the president of Equimundo up to the mic, Gary Barker.
I get to hang out with some very inspiring men here. And we're going to try to step into that kind of somber note there. First, let me start out by saying I'm a father of a 27-year-old. She's a voter in the congressman's district, so she's keeping an eye. I check in on what does she think about how you're doing. So far, it's been a good grade this week, and I do want to praise and just support you for your bravery of going to the detention centers and calling out what our government is doing right now. Thank you for that. The headline is pretty clear there, just about how we are so economically stressed. And it is at the breaking point for women and men. It's also important to bring that point in there. This is not just men. The issue is that when men feel that stress, too often it's easy to bring out the worst in us. We know how much, and that data showed there, but I think we know and feel how stressed men too often either cause harm to themselves or cause harm to others. And as we define this view of manhood that you're the provider and not much else, it feels impossible for lots of men. The Trump administration knows that. As we've criticized the money that's being spent now to understand young men on the Democratic side, Trump administration spent far more than that in a couple of weeks to understand the angst men are facing, and we saw what happened with that. It feels like often in our work, and I'm looking at Ted and some other colleagues who work on masculinities here, they from A Call to Men, and I know we'll hear from Ted later. We've been trying to figure out what's the thing we call men into, right? We've done a lot of calling men out. We've used this expression inspired by A Call to Men of the man box. Men are, as we've been measuring it these last years, men are going increasingly into this restrictive, angry, violent version of manhood. And we're seeing what it's doing to our country. The antidote for that is not going to be us shouting in front of the Capitol back at the angry men. It's going to be calling men into our better selves, and that's where we see this importance of caregiving. And I think at this particular moment, as the world is watching us, Jose and I were talking about the travels we've done in the last months and how much the world is looking at the angry manhood that the Trump administration embodies. It becomes really important that we're living the better manhoods. That we're showing every day that manhood is not defined by cutting off life-saving international assistance that we used to be the lead in the world on. It's not about denying women reproductive health services and maternal health services. It's not about locking up legal residents in this country or even treating those undocumented ones in the ways that we are treating them. We've got to step in and say that's not the manhood that we stand for. Okay. I need to take a deep breath, please, all of us kind of in this moment. Let's step into kind of where we go. We've been listening to dads, and the encouraging part from California to Kansas to the East Coast, listening to dads across party lines, they don't start off talking about politics and what we're doing in partisan levels. They're not really even talking about policy. They're talking about what they're doing to get by every day. The underlying thread they always give is their main meaning in life is, can I be there for my kids? One of them said, I get to be there in real time as my child grows up. Finding meaning even when they are out of work. A man out of work for 13 years, saying how much he's finding meaning in dropping his child off at school and picking up. Being there for the essay contest and his daughter's first soccer match. Men are finding meaning in this. We've got a chance to step into that. Republican dads finding the same thing. If we didn't bring up politics, the discourses, the conversations were the same. Then there's the men who aren't making it, the Latino dads in California who are afraid to go for the services they legally are entitled to because they're afraid they're going to get picked up by ICE, even if they're in the country legally. Those are the stories we hear too. Just one more call of how urgent this is. In our national survey, first time we asked this question, 37% of men are in favor of anti-democratic militias in this country. 7% say they're members of such militias. How do we step in with a message and care and the good connected manhood that we all need? I think this feels like a particularly, I don't know what you're doing about Father's Day this year, but as we look at what's happening on the mall, it feels particularly important to say we got to bring in a version of manhood that is not about this shallow, hollow, waving of weapons that is costing $45 million. We got to step in and say, this is where we need this funding. This is where we need the political action. So I'm going to do what men often don't do at this moment, which is to say, I need some help here. So I'm going to call in two gentlemen to join me up here. We're going to talk about what we can do together. Joe, Charles, come on up. I want to have a conversation. How do we step into our better manhood? We good? Jose's giving me the thumbs up. All right. We're in the right place. We're seated here. All right. I just want to have a conversation with some guys. 27 years ago or something 27 years ago, I was a stay-at-home dad in a country that doesn't offer any federally guaranteed paid leave. This country here. We still don't, 27 years later. I bring up that example because it feels, the urgency of how long we've been trying to get the kinds of services and policies that we need in place. And all the stories of what's happening with maternal mortality. Our rates have not come down where they should. We know where they are, particularly with women of color. Joe, the loneliness crisis that's going on here, and just how men are so hungry for a community. And Congressman, I was inspired by the first, where you started in the jump here of saying, I was part of the Moms Caucus before I was part of the Dads Caucus. Because if we can find any inspirations to women who have been doing the advocacy on policy work in the care economy and the care policies before most of us were, stopped watching cartoons. So I think it is important to acknowledge, that, and I appreciate that you started your action there. So tell us about your journeys here. I'm going to start with you, Charles. How did you, tell us about your story, tell us a little bit about your organization, and what's motivating you now?
No, absolutely. So first and foremost, happy Father's Day to all the dads, right? Listen, we see you, we celebrate you, we respect you, and we're so grateful that you're here with us celebrating Father's Day in this way. Thank you for all the work that you do, and Joe, thank you, and Representative Gomez, I love you to life, man. I'm just appreciative of your leadership and your continued partnership. Whenever I call, you show up, and I'm grateful for it. My story really starts with me meeting a woman that absolutely changed my life, right? And so we talk about my wife, Kira. A lot of y'all who know me well know that I can brag about her all day long. We're talking about a woman who raced cars, who spoke 5 languages, who was a skydiver. And I say all the time, too, like people who know me, I'm real, she was way out of my league, straight up. But I always wanted to be a dad. We welcomed our first son, Charles V, in 2014, and we started talking about how cool it would be to have back-to-back boys, right? And so when we found out we were welcoming our second son, Langston, in April of 2016, we were so thrilled. And so throughout Kira's entire pregnancy, she was exceptionally healthy. And on April 12th of 2016, we walked into Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles, where we expected to be the happiest day of our lives, and walked right into a nightmare. In the interest of time, what happened over the next 12 hours is something that almost 10 years later I still struggle to wrap my mind around. Our son was born perfectly healthy, 10 fingers, 10 toes, super handsome, came out looking just like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is it. On top of the world, like the dream. This is everything we had hoped for. And shortly after that, they took Kira back to recovery, and she's there resting. I began to see blood in the catheter. That's around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I brought it to the attention of the doctors at Cedars. They came in, they examined her, and did a series of tests. And like I said, in the interest of time, what happened over the next 10 hours is she was allowed to bleed internally for more than 10 hours while myself and my family begged and pleaded for them to just do something. Our pleas fell on deaf ears. And unfortunately, when I walked into that hospital, the thought that my wife would not walk out, Gary, it never crossed my mind. And as I moved forward trying to put the pieces back together, that's when I began to hear stories of other families that had had horrific birthing experiences, families that had experienced discrimination and obstetric violence. And I really thought at first that what happened to us was an anomaly. And I was blown away by two things. One, how is this happening in our country? And two, how is it not everybody is outraged? And so I didn't know what I could do. I didn't know how I could make an impact, but I felt like I had to do something. I felt like I owed it to my wife, and I felt like I owed it to my boys. And so we founded this organization called For Cure for Moms with one very distinct mission, and that is to eradicate the maternal mortality crisis in our country, full stop. And so for the past 9 years, we've been working very hard to do that in a plethora of ways. But most recently and very poignantly, this week is special to us because we're on Capitol Hill in support of a couple of things. One, the Black Maternal Health Omnibus. Secondarily, paid leave for all, right? And then lastly, advocating for what we call the Dads Matter Act, which I know that you're familiar with. That is a bipartisan effort that will have HHS invest resources specifically to empower fathers so that we can do everything we can to show up in support of our mothers and our babies. And so this is as you mentioned, it's a tough time. But here's the thing, we talk about these issues around family. Like, these are things that should be uniquely unifying in a time that's so divisive, right? And one of the things that we've seen when we meet with people on both sides of the aisle is it doesn't matter where you're from, what zip code you're from, we can all agree that if fathers can show up more informed, more empowered with the tools and resources they need, it can make a drastically positive impact on outcomes, on strengthening the family, on decreasing postpartum depression, and on reduction in divorce rates and, like you said, domestic violence. So we're proud and excited to be on this fight and proud to continue to make our country a better place with all of you guys.
Thanks for that, Charles.
Thank you, Charles. I'm Joe, founder of Brooklyn Stroll Club. Soul's dad, that's my son out there. He's just learning to talk, so he's using his voice. And most importantly, Mallory's husband. I started Brooklyn Stroll Club, really, I would say, kind of by accident. I became a dad, and I felt a little isolated, to be honest. I didn't know where communities were, where people like me could meet up, and I just didn't know what I didn't know. I was just experiencing everything with my wife. It's just both of us in the city, and so I made a call out really on social media to see, hey, where did dads hang out? And everyone was kind of like, you started. So that's what I did, and we started the community really as just meeting up in the park with no expectations. And what we found from that is that dads are hungry for community as well. And I wasn't the only one who needed people around me going through the same experiences and learning this together. And I think what we've seen in the community, we've moved to monthly meetups. We have our online community as well, creating conversations around just learning, growing, and all the messy world of fatherhood and parenting, and supporting your partner in those aspects as well. And so our goal is to really redefine what modern fatherhood looks like by telling imagery, telling stories, painting that picture, because I truly believe that men have good in them, and we want to repaint what that is, and how can we learn and grow, not in a where men were figured it out already, but a humble approach to society in these initiatives that we're trying to grow with. So that's what we're about.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Congressman, if I may ask a slightly different question on the point I brought up before. Full disclosure, I'm married to an immigrant from Latin America who works on the front line of health and rights for mostly undocumented immigrants in this city. And we're, our daily conversations are what's happening in LA. Our daughter lives in your district where a lot of this stuff is happening. You've been a vocal spokesperson on this. All the rhetoric that's there that he is throwing out there about criminals, to me, they are families and they are parents. This is about caregiving and caring men. The Latino immigrant, documented or undocumented, that I talk to, they are caring dads. What can we do to support you? Where do you think we go next in this particular moment, if I may throw you that question?
That's funny, because I tried to, my son right now, I had to get off because my wife was like, Hodge is yelling that he wants to call you. And I'm like, okay. So I went and talked to him, and he had to tell me very important news. He found 2 of his cars. That's what his important news were. But it really kind of I think tells the story that most parents will do whatever they have to do to make their child happy, to provide for their child or their children. And that's what I think you see when it comes to immigrants. My parents are from Mexico, and four of my siblings were born in Mexico. And my parents grew up in poverty that most people can't imagine. They lived in a one-room adobe house with a thatched roof, slept on straw mats and dirt floor, and worked the land. And they eventually came over here. I don't know, in the my dad earlier as a bracero, and then later came back. A bracero, somebody who's a farm worker, and then they later came back and brought my siblings with them. That was like the late 60s, early 70s, and then my brother Javier and I were born here. And the risks that they took were like severe. It's not like now where you cross the border, right? It's not like it. Well, back then it was a little bit more lax, to be honest, but the dangers were just as severe or more so. And that kind of reminds me of what a lot of these parents put on the line. They often travel thousands of miles. They lay it all on the line to give their kids a different opportunity in life. And we know that as life in different countries gets better, you often see immigration decrease because there's actually a future there. And what you're seeing now is a situation where Donald Trump doesn't care about what immigrants, who they are, or well, how about this? He when they look like us, he cares who they are. And I always tell people, I said, you never see them pull over somebody who's Canadian and undocumented. You never see them pull over somebody that's European and undocumented. There's about almost 1 million of them in the United States combined. So it always happens to be individuals that look like me or people like us. And that's deliberate. And he said originally he was going to target criminals. I don't know any MS-13 gang members that work at a car wash during the day or a day laborer at Home Depot or work at a restaurant. And what he is trying to do is just get his numbers up. Doesn't matter to him who, what, when, and where. He's even like the people that supported him that were of Latino descent. He doesn't care about them either, right? Like everybody's on his target list. So we're in a dark place. But what I see is also a lot of people standing up for one another, mothers and fathers and children, their children, and you seeing people surrounding individuals with a lot of care, and the images you see are very. They don't represent 99% of what's going on. A lot of the protests happen to be concentrated in my district. Most of the clashes are in my district, in the civic center district. And so it's very isolated, but they want to paint it as the whole city of LA. And then using that as an excuse to federalize the National Guard, which we knew that he would eventually do that. And use military troops. And they had been planning this for months. Reports are now coming out that they had been planning this for months. And what I said, and the executive order he signed doesn't limit this to Los Angeles. He can nationalize or federalize the National Guard of any state he wants for as long as he wants at the discretion of the Secretary of Defense, who was a Fox News host. So I just want if you do not believe this is coming to a town near you, you're absolutely wrong. It will be in your city or your state before too long. And in some respects, we have to figure out how to kind of protect our children from some of it, but at the same time, be an example to them. And I'll end on this. My wife and son went to a prayer vigil in downtown LA. I would say not even a half mile from the detention center, and they were singing songs, they were praying, and it was completely calm. So we want to kind of get those messages out of what's really going on in Los Angeles, but or in the downtown area. But this is only the beginning of the beginning, and we have a long ways to go. And I think things are going to get worse before they get better. I hate to be.
No, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, Charles, I want to come back to you. I think one of the congressman's points is we all have to be in this fight. How do we break down? I think some of the kind of thoughts that I'm for this group or I'm for this group. How do you what have you learned in your advocacy here of how more folks can be on board for Black women's maternal health? We know the numbers affecting African American women in this country. It can't just be an issue of the African American community. What have you learned? What do you want from others of us? What can we do?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So, succinctly, when it comes down to it, you cannot have a substantive conversation about the maternal mortality crisis in the United States without head-on, regardless of what words people want to erase from our vocabulary or vernacular, without head-on addressing the manner in which this crisis is disproportionately affecting Black women, period, full stop. With that being said, when we talk about legislation, and the Congressman knows we have bills like the Black Maternal Health Momnibus that prioritize and focus on these issues addressing Black women. So when people ask the question, Gary, well, why do we need legislation and policy specifically for Black women? It is because when we fix this for Black women, we fix it for all women, right? And the reality of the situation is that the Black maternal health crisis is the American health crisis, right? There's no delineation. There's that. And I think that just listening with my heart to what the congressman was saying, we talk about these issues, whether it's these issues of mass deportation that is unconstitutional, whether it's these issues of maternal health, whether it is making sure that we are having funding and resources for fathers. At the end of the day, what we find when we really have conversations, like you said in your opening remarks, is when we really talk to people and put politics aside, we learn that there's so much more that unites us than divides us. We all want our families to be safe. We want an opportunity to earn a living, and we want our kids to get an education. Everything else is really just noise in a way to divide us. And another thing, if we really think about it too, the greatest trick that the wealthy ever pulled is getting working class people to believe that their problems are because of brown people and immigrants, right? While they're doing predatory mortgages and poisoning the food and doing all these things that are grossly and unethically capitalistic, right? And so when we're able to understand that, please don't get it twisted, like these issues fundamentally can unite us. And I think that's what we're doing. And so, for instance, that's one of the things that we've done this week is we've really been focused, in addition to the legislation I talked about, is helping legislators understand the true impact of gutting Medicaid and what it's going to do to the everyday family. That literally in the United States, 42% of births are funded by Medicaid, right? And not only would it impact you because there's this narrative that these cuts are going to help us balance our budget and it's going to strengthen our economy, and we're just taking, just like we're just targeting criminals, we're just taking these benefits away from the people that don't need it. But this is going to have a cascade effect on your Blue Shield Platinum, I promise you, because doctors are going to leave your community, hospitals are going to close, and then those of us that happen to be able to have the privilege of having private pay insurance, you're not going to be able to have care. And so these are messages that transcend party lines, transcend color, transcend race, transcend who you love. At the end of the day, we have to work in finding messaging and helping people understand that there are so many things that unite us than divide.
Joe, as we looked into that very sobering data, and there's a few recommendations at the end of that video, one of them that we didn't include there, but we are talking about is men just need community. And you know, there's a big network of men's groups across the country. Jose from our team and Ted and probably some others were just at this group called Big Tent that tried to bring some of them together. And they all, you know, what I heard anyway, they all said, we've got a huge demand. Like, guys are seeing the need for community. Tell us what you're hearing with guys. I mean, as you don't call yourself that, but I see you as doing a mental health service in a moment when a mental health crisis is partly responsible for this great harm that we're seeing in our country. Tell us what you're hearing from guys about what they get and what they need.
Yeah, I think what I first learned from men and fathers is that they didn't know they needed community. I think that's kind of the first step. It's isolation starts from childhood, I feel like, as you become a man. And I think where we're trying to combat is how do we join together and educate, but also create a space where authenticity is key. And we truly walk through the processes of fatherhood. It changes every day for everyone. And so for me, it's how can we step alongside a dad and walk through every aspect of parenting for him. That is from pregnancy, how do we support your partner? How do you come out of that? And I think that's how we're going to truly see impact, is not just leaving them before or after, but truly creating legislation, but also walking alongside of them and creating those conversations. I think responding and being able to be an active conversation has more power than anything. And I think the goal at the end of the day is for fathers to feel confident outside, to be able to be confident with their child, to be able to be confident in themselves. And I think that will provide true change for families for generations. And that's the goal. We want impact. We want fathers to be out here changing their sons, and we want them to be okay with changing a diaper, okay with having hard conversations. And there's so many micro moments that you can go through parenting, but our hope is to give those dads confidence in that. And I think if we take those proper steps of staying alongside, we can really see that.
Thanks for that. Congressman, before we open up for questions, just wanted to, you ended on how sobering this moment is, but you're still here. And you're fighting the fight. Tell us what. Give us a moment of hope there, because your energy is still fighting the fight. Yeah.
No, thank you. I'm glad to be here with all of you. I actually was feeling a little tired this morning, to be honest with you. Maybe it's because it's been nonstop since the beginning of the year, and then this past week has just accelerated. The contrast of kind of my life is sometimes strange, right? Being a member, being a dad, going to a detention center, getting, they're trying to shoo us away with some tear gas, a little bit of tear gas, not sprayed directly in my face tear gas, but still tear gas nevertheless. And
that's
then
too
my
much.
wife,
That's too much tear gas.
Yeah. And then I get home, and my wife's like, "Oh, Hodge wants you to put him to bed," and I'm like, "Great, I can take a nap, right?" But it's. My hope is always just kind of understanding that the American people are, they're not, people want to say, oh, these people are good or these people are bad. And I don't think that's the case. Maybe a few people in the White House. But most people are more complex than that. And I think that that's what you're seeing with the response of individuals throughout the country when it comes to their neighbor or somebody they know that gets arrested by ICE. We hear stories of the waitress, I believe in Missouri, whose community rose up, conservative city, to push back, and that gives me hope. And at the same time, I still, like I said, believe that it is fundamentally about our children, about connection, understanding the humanity in one of us and each other. The maternal mortality crisis is a huge issue, and we should care that it primarily impacts black mothers. And that if we help black mothers, we're also helping all of us, or feeling isolated as fathers, or being stressed out because we're not necessarily making enough, or the financial burdens are a lot. So I think that I still have hope because I see things always changing. And it's not a straight line, right? It's never a straight line. And I learned a long time ago that although that, I'm an elected official now, but elected officials come and go. The community and the people remain. And that's why it's important to see it as not as a one-person run, but it's a more like a relay race. And I like to think that we're getting to, we're going to have some tough times ahead, no doubt about it. But I think in the end we'll make it through it. If not, I wouldn't be doing what I do.
Thank you for that. Speaking of the relay race, and that we don't do this alone, I want to ask the congressman's staff to stand up or raise their hand, because we know all you do is powered by them. If you guys would stand up. Thank you. I also get to thank the amazing staff at Equimundo who do this research and this advocacy. If you guys wouldn't mind standing up, please. I think I'm looking for Jose. Yes, we've got a few minutes for questions. Yeah? All right, so let's open up for a couple of minutes and, open up for questions. I don't know if we have a roving mic or it's a small enough room, whoever's got Ted, you were going to volunteer a question.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ted Bunch, co-founder of False Men's National Organization focused on ending violence, but also promoting health and healthy masculinity. I just want to really commend the gathering here today. Equimundo, Gary, Jose, your team, and Congressman for bringing us all together today in this incredible message. And thank you, men, for your courage and stepping out and making a difference as well. I do want to lift up one thing, especially that you said, Charles, which is really if we serve and take care of the needs of black women, then everyone else will be taken care of. If we go to the margins and work toward the middle, we know that the middle will be taken care of. But if we go to the middle, there's often not attention or resources that get to the margins. So I really want to lift that up. And also just to lift up fatherhood. I like what you said. I'm not sure if it was you, Gary, or someone said redefining modern-day fatherhood, because so much has been around protect and provide, which women do as well, but really around the nurturing and the importance of fatherhood and what it does for men. And when men are better, and it is a mental health service, I agree with you what you're doing, brother. It's a mental health service, and when men are healthier, the entire world is healthier. We know that. So I just wanted to let you know that we stand with you at A Call to Man and love what you're doing here. Equimundo, we're proud to partner with you. So I don't have anything to add other than that, but thank you.
I'll just take a moderator's comment here. Ted and the folks at A Call to Men have been so important about bringing men along as allies to end men's violence against women. And among the other things that thank you for that. Among the other things, and it has not gotten the attention that it deserves, that are being that are being gutted by this administration, are the life-saving services to protect women survivors of violence and to fund the prevention work that prevents it from happening. We know the disproportionate impact on low-income families. So these are multiple hits, and this one, it is so hard to keep up with all the changes and harms that are happening, but let's not forget that one. The Violence Against Women Act, passed under then Senator Biden, has been, and the data is so clear on how life-saving it is and how we got to hold the line on that one too. So just wanted to commend Ted and all the work that you guys have done on that, and the women who have led that fight as well.
Can I add something for Joe? It's interesting. Members of Congress, everybody thinks that, we have a lot of friends. I have friends that are members of Congress, and then my friends before I was ever elected. Before my son was born, I would strike up a conversation with somebody, and they would act weird, to be honest. And they couldn't connect because they're, he's a member of Congress or he's a state assembly member. And it's actually fatherhood, having Hodge, that gave me a different way to connect with people. And then people didn't look at me like I was the weird Congress member, right? So they were more willing to put their guard down. And that's the power of being a parent, mother or father. So how we change things is sharing that experience and doing it and being kind of honest about it. One of the things I wanted to do is start a podcast with my staff. We discussed it. I wanted to name it what goes in must come out. They put a kibosh on that. But it's kind of like, that's the kind of how you talk. Dads talk, oh, you know, this guy, he has no idea about the toddler phase. Toddler phase is wild, right? Potty training is wild, right? But you can laugh about it, you can cry about it, you can connect about it. And that's how you build stronger bonds. So I just want to give you a kind of a plug for everything that you're doing with the Stroller Club.
Thank you.
So hand up in the back if you, yeah.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Jamal Muhammad. I'm here on behalf of Mothering with Justice. I just wanted to just kind of, raise a comment and just, commend, the men up here, and especially, you, brother, who's, going through what you're going through, with your children. And, a lot of times, so many of us, we go through situations and circumstances, especially when it comes to children. And when we talk about the reproductive rights, like you said, when we talk about it being for women of color, but it's really for women everywhere, because we know the reproductive rights is something that's natural for all women. And when you think about, the women who go through so much terrific hurt and pain because they have fathers that have walked out of their children's lives, or have, fathers that are not having the support financially, physically or mentally. And when you think about the different things that the United States has offered to mothers when it comes to, the different policies and procedures and stuff, and we see all these different things being cut. And I think it's time for us, more prevalent now, that we all stand together as a community, no matter what organization we come from, no matter what race we come from. But this is the time for us really to stand together as a people. And I think that our unity and speaking up and advocating for these different things that was going on is what's going to be able to shape the world. It doesn't matter what's going on in the White House, because we know that God is in control over all things. So I think this is very important, especially during, Father's Day weekend, because, sometimes as fathers and as dads, we can really be put down, and sometimes women have a right to feel the way they feel, because we as men have not stepped up to the table. We as men have not accepted the responsibility of fatherhood and protecting our women. And it's not necessarily because that person is the bad person, but sometimes we come from circumstances and situations that have shaped us and made us other than what our natural self is, to be as fathers and leaders for our people in our community. So I think it's very important that we introduce bills and legislation that's able to help the circumstances and the conditions that's going on in the community and at home, and be able to help us when we're going through things, that I can be able to be at home, with my children and help my mom, right? Because, women, they go through 9 months of hurt and pain and birthing the children into the world, and not to be able to have that man besides them to be able to help them, not just financially, but to be able to have that mental support and that physical support. And I think it's very, very important, like I said, as we're going through, these different changes and different things that's going on in the world, that we're standing up as a community, not to make it a race thing or not to make it this or that thing, but us to just be able to stand together, because we know that this work is important. So thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you for your comment. And so one of the things too I'll just share with you all is that, particularly when we're working to gain support for this stuff in a bipartisan fashion, oftentimes when we talk to representatives from a certain side of the aisle, everything is about the bottom line, right? And that's their big justification for making these slashes and gutting these programs. And so one of the things we've begun to do is we state our case from the compassionate standpoint about why it's important to invest in fathers and protect mothers. But then particularly when we talk about investing in fathers and making sure that fathers have the resources and tools, we state the business case, right? And we talk about what, like the ROI, if you invest in fathers, making sure that they're informed, making sure that they're empowered, making sure they have mental health support services, all of these issues, similar to what the brother said, you work from the margins and you create, it's a ripple in the pond. The return on investment in investing in fatherhood is amazing, because we reduce, right? We reduce domestic violence. We improve maternal health outcomes. We reduce instances of preterm labor, right? We reduce unemployment. All these things have a major, we grow the economy. The ROI for investing in fathers is so amazing. Another thing that I have to do really quickly, Gary, is this week has been so monumental for us because we are celebrating Father's Day by bringing together an amazing group of fathers from all around the country to advocate for these groups. So if you're here as a part of our Dadvocate group, please raise your hand. And so these gentlemen have literally come from all over the country and are sharing their stories on Capitol Hill in support of these issues. So if you're here today, please do yourself a favor and, connect with these men, find out what they're doing, hear about their work. And I also have to send a huge shout out to our partners from Mothering Justice. Thank you for all the amazing work that you do. Thank you for being an amazing partner. Yeah, and thank you to our executive director, Gabby, who is just the shero and the catalyst for all this stuff, and make sure that all the trains are on the track.
You brought up the corporate part, and as we've got this thing moving around called Doge, saying that it's doing cuts here. And now you brought up the ROI. Sorry, I'm bringing in a data point.
Come on, Gary, bring the data in.
We're a research team here as well. Whenever the Republicans say this stuff costs money, you look across the world, care policies give an average of a 3 times rate of return. So imagine that in your savings account. If you could put that there and a few years later it's 3 times the amount, care policies pay for it at least 3 times the amount, no matter which one you do. Subsidized child care, paid leave, any support for caregivers leads to a 3 times rate of return. We should kind of hold that on our forehead.
That's powerful.
As Doge comes around, right? The other thing I wanted to do, you brought up the corporate sector. There's some brave corporations in this room who support this work as well. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands, but in a moment when we know this administration is trying to tear down DEI approaches and equality in workplaces, I want to commend you and the need for other corporate leaders to say, we're keeping our heads high and keeping these policies going. So I won't ask you to raise your hands, but we do commend what you do. Thanks for keeping that cause going. Got one more question, and then we're going to close. So, sir.
What's being done to support the military dads, the guys that actually leave the families that they're supporting to be able to support them, either upon return or while they're deployed?
So I'll answer that in a little bit now, Shirley. So one of the things, thank you for that question. So last year, we're really proud of the fact, because I know that we talked a lot yesterday about the Momnibus, right? Last year, we actually passed a bill called Protecting the Moms Who Serve Act. It's the first bill that passed out of that Momnibus package, and it was specifically to address the needs of military parents, because you're right. There are a unique set of sacrifices and challenges that military families are strapped with, right? So that's one of the things that the Black Maternal Health Caucus under the leadership of Representative Lauren Underwood have done. But I'm curious to find out what else is going on in Congress, and I'd be more than willing to support that as well.
So it's interesting that I think it was 2 years ago. I can't really remember how long ago, but a bipartisan group of members led by Chrissy Houlihan actually included paid family leave for people in the military, which did not exist. And that is groundbreaking in a way, because once you do it in the military, then people start asking, well, why can't everyone else have it? And that was a huge win. That same group is now working on trying to put forward paid family leave strategies moving forward. They asked me to join after Colin Allred left Congress. He was one of the members of that group, so they asked me to join. And I think that figuring that out is part of the key to kind of getting this idea of paid leave for everyone. And it seems small, but it's not. It's kind of like the camels getting the camel's nose under the tent. It's a little bit. So I think that is huge. And guess what? People that join the military from all walks of life, from all 50 states, red and blue, and they will, when they have family, they have kids and they take leave, well, then they're going to tell people that they had it. So little wins like that do transform people. Most people think that you convince people first, right? Oh, this is a good idea. This is what you should do. It's actually very hard to do that. You convince them by actually having them do it. And that is a huge transformative policy. Who knows, maybe, you never know with this administration, they might think it's too woke and they might try to get rid of it. But it's a huge, huge win. And we should do more for military families. Leaving your child for that long is very, very, very challenging. So,
thanks for that. We promised that we wanted to leave on some action notes and some, we hope, a bit more uplifting notes. So I want to lean into an acknowledgement. We're celebrating Father's Day this weekend. But we don't have Father's Day without the women caregivers who are doing so much of this and who still do more, even as we've gotten closer to equality. We still have a huge amount for men to be supported in doing our share. We know what this means to households every day. We know what it means to women's livelihoods if we have men empowering that. I'm looking at our board member, Kate Mangino, who writes a lot about this, of kind of how do we get to equal care. It sounds like a small thing that we negotiate at the kitchen table, but it's such a burst of equality that we need in the world, and so empowers our families with all the things they need as well. So we're celebrating Father's Day, but we can't do it without thinking about the women and the mothers who are here, who are part of this, whose voices are also empowering us. So we got a message to end on, and then we'll invite you to a reception. Thanks all for joining us today. This evening, if you don't know about, we're doing a reception at the Recording Industry of America. If I have the American Recording Artists Association, that's what I meant. This evening, we're going to honor some fathers who are doing amazing advocacy work, including a few you might know here up on stage. So if you're able to join us at 6 p.m. tonight, if you don't have the details on where, Jose, Carlos, others in the room, we can tell you where that is. So thanks again for coming here. Thanks again for all the support to make this happen. And let's go out there and keep making this noise. Thanks. Thank you.